So buckle up, press pause and go and make yourself some coffee or tea if you want, because I'm going to go all through the 4 core things we're going to talk about today in this one presentation. Okay, we're going to look at the screen as well. We're going to talk through some examples. I'm not going to cover everything about all 4 of our structures because that would be overwhelming. Okay, and we have weeks on the course to go through this bit by bit, but I really want to introduce you to this way of thinking about things first. So the 4 steps to a bulletproof structure for your writing. Okay, despite the fancy name, they're quite simple, but I wanted the fancy name because I want you to pay attention, not necessarily when you're writing, apart from step 1, but definitely when you're editing. Okay, so when you come to editing, which, if I haven't stressed enough by now, is one of the most important things, possibly the most important thing that you do, then you go through each of these 4 steps, and you're going to do it consciously, and that way you're not going to get overwhelmed, you're not going to get lost, and you can do it faster, clearer. Let's go. So number 1 is the scaffold or structure of what you're doing. And another way of saying that is the beginning, the middle and the end, which I used to hate when I was at school. They used to talk about that because even the worst piece of writing has a beginning, a middle and an end, right? Just by default, they're there. But what this means is how you've crafted your narrative or story. Now, we talk a lot about story later, but a word of warning now, some people get stuck, and when they hear me say story, they think, I don't know, Jack and Jill went up the hill, or I went travelling with my husband, or there's a spaceship coming from Mars to kill us all, or something like that. I don't mean that. I mean really how you order ideas. And that narrative can apply to a dishwasher manual, or it can apply to a 3-act play. Okay, there are different structures and ways of doing it, but it's mostly talking about the structure, how you organise things. Okay. Even in a book or film review, you want to put your various points into an order, into a scaffolding that makes sense for story and for ideas. Otherwise, your writer gets confused. So those are big, deep things. They're often the hardest thing to get right. Okay, all the other little flourishes and tips and tricks that I give you are quite good fun because you can just do them straight away. Okay, this often requires a bit of thought, structure, hence the other lessons. But I want you to be aware of it. I want you to notice it when you look at other people's writing. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it there? Have they even thought about it? And I want you to notice it when you're starting to edit yours. Or if you're planning out something complex, think about the structure first. So all the other ways of doing it, we're going to do later. So step 2 is paragraphs. Okay, now a paragraph can be very, very short, and increasingly with online writing, they are just 1 sentence, but they can also be quite long, and it depends. In general, the longer the piece you have, the longer the paragraph, or alternatively, quite often, the more intellectual the audience, the longer the paragraph. That seems to be the rule of thumb if you look at the tabloid newspapers rather than the broadsheets, for example. But let's look at a real life example here. It's one of my pieces of writing because that's just a bit easier for copyright reasons. As usual, I see things on there already that I wish I'd done better. Okay, and that is kind of good because it shows that we're learning all the time. But I also want to point out now here, as I did in one of the Facebook groups, it's about being quality and professional. And professional doesn't mean perfect. It means good enough. Okay, it means knowing when your writing is good enough to send out and not freezing and spending forever trying to get it perfect, because there is no perfect. Okay, even the best books in the land, the most famous in history, have errors in them. So it's not clean. I'm not giving you a pass to forget and to make as many mistakes as you like or just be sloppy, but I am setting you free from having to be perfect. So with all of that, let's have a look here at the paragraphs. So here's a long one, medium, long, medium, very short. Okay, and that is, it came out semi-accidentally, but it is something to watch out for. You want to vary the length of your paragraph. So let's actually read it now. A man cast a glance over his shoulder before arching back and casting his line into the water. The street chatter and rush hour traffic drown out the subtle splash, but from the look on his face, you'd think he stood alone in the countryside, miles from anyone, miles from anywhere. He's one of the many who line I'm going to say it wrong now, Galata Bridge in Istanbul, searching for sea life in the inlet of the mighty Bosphorus, the waterway known as the Golden Horn. Despite the size of the city, 13 million at the last count, the air feels fresh and clean, with soft wisps of salt dancing through the breeze. It's early morning, and it's also winter, meaning that the sun, like the rest of us, is still warming up to the idea of the day ahead. I stride across the bridge, my hands curling inside my pockets to grasp any vestige of heat, while my breath joins the mist that veils the view ahead. And what a view it is. So a few other comments. It's not just varying the length for the sake of it. You'll notice that when we use a very short paragraph here, then that really works as a finish or as a tripwire onto the very next thing. Okay, so you're going to expect something else to happen here. You don't expect to finish and what a view it is. Okay, you're expecting to then learn more about the view. The other thing to mention about the paragraphs is that you separate the ideas. So here we are setting the scene. Okay, paragraph 1, setting the scene. It's about what you can see and what you think the man is going to feel. Here we're starting to fill in details, and this is a very tried and tested route for all kinds of types of writing. Okay, you don't have all the facts in the first paragraph. Then this one again is back to atmosphere. Then we're movement. Okay, we don't want to spend too long just describing what things look and feel like. It's then on to movement, and then on to the reveal. Dun dun dun. So that's one idea. So again, take your piece of writing out and look at your paragraphs. Are they all the same? Is there a natural rhythm to it? Have you got ideas contained in each paragraph? So if number 1 was the overall narrative or structure, number 2 is paragraphs, number 3 is sentences, your building block. So for quick hits, we've covered a lot of these already, and sentences are the easiest things to fix. So the active to passive switcheroo that we covered first of all. So instead of the water was brought, it's the waiter brought the water, that kind of thing. That's switching active to passive. Another quick thing to watch out for between sentences and paragraphs is trying not to go back. So when anybody reads something, and again, it's not all about this atmospheric writing, it's about anything. The idea is to have somebody to forget they're listening to something. Sorry, that must be you guys listening to me. The idea is to get them to forget that they're reading it. You want them to almost be thinking it, okay? You want your reader lost in a world that you are creating, such that if you are writing a travel piece, they're walking alongside you. If you are writing a service piece, then all they're thinking about is how those instructions help them get from A to B. If you're writing a pitch, you just want the person thinking about your idea and how brilliant it is and how they want to hire you. You don't want them to be thinking, oh, look, I'm reading a pitch. Okay? And so there are many ways to get this wrong, but here are a few to quickly look out for. Anything that pulls somebody out of what you've written is something we want to get rid of. So it's the same, it's perhaps easier to understand when we look at films. So you can be watching a film or a movie if you're American and you're completely immersed, okay? You're ready to cry, you're ready to laugh, you've totally bought into this online world. And then somebody opens the door and they can be doing something nice, they can say, look, hey, does anybody want a cup of tea? And you might be able to get away with yeah, sure, or no thanks, and get back into the film. But then if they then stand there and say, oh, but do you take milk or sugar, and was it a biscuit? And oh no, I'm sorry, do you think you want it really pulls you out of the idea of the story, okay? Or if you're sat watching a film with someone who, worst case scenario, has seen it before and they're going, oh, look out for this. This bit's important. Now pay attention to this because you're going to need that later. It ruins completely the world that you're in and the story. And so you as the writer have a responsibility to your reader to not be that annoying person, okay? So to not do that. So when you have a look at your sentences, make sure that you don't do anything like this. There's always caveats. There are some times where this sentence would work. I encourage you to refer back to my previous comments on the matter, okay? But mostly it sounds grumpy. And are you really trying to refer somebody back. Why would you want them to do the work? Okay, you're the writer, you're the one supposed to be doing the work. Okay, it's not the reader's job, it's yours. So, as you may recall, if you feel it's important that they need the reminder that you've already said this, okay, then it's, as you may recall, I feel passionately about the flavour of toothpaste and how purple is the only acceptable choice. I don't know why I chose that example. Okay, and if you're blogging, you can link that to another article. If you're not, then you might not even need it, as you may recall. But the whole point is, you shouldn't have to go referring back. You don't want your reader to have to leave in order for what you say to make sense. It's really, really annoying. It breaks your reader out of the spell. And certainly if you're doing that in pitching and essays and things where you're writing to reach a stressed and harassed person who really is trying to get out of reading your thing at all, the default position probably is that they don't want to do whatever it is you're asking of them, then don't give them more work. Don't say, oh, you go and do this because I couldn't be bothered. No. So watch out for that as quick fix for your sentence. And then, of course, so recite after me. If number 1 is structure or narrative, number 2 is paragraphs, number 3 is sentences, then number 4, when you go through your work, editing, is words. This is the bit to do last. And now I've said that, that probably seems really obvious, but I see a lot of people getting lost because sentences and words are a bit more fun. But what you can obviously do is spend a lot of time polishing up a sentence, falling in love with a word, playing around with a thesaurus and a dictionary or daydreaming. And then when you actually go to your structure or paragraph, you realise you're going to have to delete a whole section, okay? The section doesn't work for the structure. The paragraph is too long. Or you get to your fact checking, more about that later, and actually the facts are inconclusive. You're going to have to cite so many sources and do so much work to verify it that it doesn't earn its place in your piece. So the fact goes, the story goes, and then you've wasted time polishing up these sentences and these beautiful words that you're just going to delete completely from your work. Okay, that is not the way to be a productive writer, and it's not the way to be a professional writer. So this structure works to save you time as well as sanity. So repeat after me. Narrative or structure, paragraph, sentence, words. Then when you get to the word bit, once we've done all of that, and again, yes, we're going to be building on this block by block through the course, then you can only then have fun with the words. But a quick tip for today, because it's write better right now. One easy way to add a bit of spice to your writing is to look out for colours. Okay, now you can easily overdo this. Don't go crazy and everything has to be a poetic ochre and lilac dream. Okay, you can sometimes just say red, blue, purple. But also don't always say those words. And again, it depends what you're writing, but the point holds for all words. Be a little bit imaginative. Not on every word, but on some. So scarlet for red, mildew green, even a modifier works, seaweed green, emerald green, sludge green. There are different emotions that come up with those, okay? It's not just about what the thing looks like. So look out for any colours in your work. That is a quick hit. Think long and hard about structure and triage, prioritise your editing when you go through a piece. Thank you very much. See you for the next lesson.